Down the Biscayne.
Yeah. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing rubber frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust.
You sound scared.
It's about have the guts, we're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
Welcome into this post-game edition of 5 on the Floor. I'm your host, Greg Sylvander. Tonight's floor plan with me, Major Passons. We are going to get into what was just a poor game from the Miami Heat. In what was, I at least went into it feeling excited about seeing the debuts of certain players, and we'll talk about the new additions. But ultimately, Boston comes into Miami, wins 103-85. We're going to talk about that defeat. Before I do, I want to shout out Off the Floor. That's our Discord server. Go there for the most Heat content anywhere. This is where Heat fans are chatting 24/7. There was Super Bowl stuff going. We had a different thread for that where you could chat about the Super Bowl. It's a place where you can really migrate and consolidate all the different social media platforms that you're on and do it all in one place, but particularly talk about the Miami Heat. $2.99 a month. You can skip the Apple upcharge by clicking through the link in the description of this episode. Check out Off the Floor for the most Heat anywhere. I don't know that people want the most Heat anywhere because it feels like the Heat didn't show up tonight, Major. This was a game where when I heard Jaylen Brown was sitting, I thought that the Heat could have a chance, at least when he was questionable. But then it came out that Tyler was out. And this is just the thing with good teams. And the Heat have been one of these teams in the past. Even when guys are out, when you're a good team, you still figure out ways to win ball games. And like, I know that that's cliche as hell to say, but that's something that a good team like Boston, and they just were on the road and kicked the crap out of New York. They come into Miami, they do the same thing. I guess let's start here because the first quarter was the most hopeful that we could have been. The Heat were up 24-18 at the end of one. They got outscored in all the fourth quarter. They outscored Boston by 5, but it was basically over by then. The second and third quarter, they were just completely, it was like an avalanche. We'll talk about that later, but let's just talk early. Your first impression of the new players. We'll start with Wiggins, Davion Mitchell, and Kyle. We'll go through all 3 of them. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think Wiggins actually fit in. I don't want to say like a glove because there were times where you could tell he wasn't seamless, but he looked like he had been a part of the team before and he kind of knew what he was supposed to be doing. And I mean, I think that can be attributed to he's played in several different systems with several different types of players. He just played with Steph and Draymond. He's used to having to morph his game to fit other people, and he just plays that type of game where he can just do that on any given night. I think he started out playing really good defense on Tatum, and Tatum started out really slow. He was making a lot of things difficult for them. Obviously, Tatum then started hitting a shot or two. They started getting a switch, and then if you're as talented as Tatum, once you see 1 or 2 go in it, then it doesn't really matter who's on you. But I was encouraged by what I saw from Wiggins. Not a good shooting night, right? We talked about that right before we got on. But I think there's a difference in like taking bad shots and messing up the offense versus just missing the open ones or decent looks. And I thought that is more what Wiggins had. For Davion Mitchell, several things. One, you could see at the start of the game, his defense was like, that's why he was brought there. He's very aggressive. He's a little pest. And for on-ball guard, like defensive guards, point of attack, calling them a pest is like the biggest compliment you can give. And he is that. Then I loved on the offensive end, he was breaking down a lot of times like his defender, getting past them and kicking it out. He was getting paint touches at will and kicking them out. He was also rebounding. Now his shot once again wasn't falling, and he kind of drifted off as the game went on. But that start is what you could kind of see. And in his defense, everyone drifted off. I mean, you're just getting avalanched by a much better team than you. Doesn't matter if they're missing Jaylen Brown. They are still the better team. Kyle Anderson, I mean, not much to say one way or the other. Missed some open looks. I did notice he did cut one or two times. His nickname Slow-Mo. It's not like he was sprinting to those cuts, but he kind of like walked into space, which opened up some other avenues for passes. The Heat don't really have guys like that, so you can see his IQ there, like Spo talks about. A lot of positives you can take from it for those specific players, and they're integrating into a new system, but it's really just overshadowed by getting smacked by a much better team.
This is true. And just to reinforce the shooting numbers that you mentioned, we were 11 of 45 tonight from three. That's 24%. They shot 33.7%. I'm not going to round up for them tonight. It was bad. 31 of 92 overall. They got more field goals up at the basket than the Celtics. They only got 85 field goals. And this was just a situation where, although you had the three new players and there were moments that each of them showed things that are promising, it got overshadowed, to your point, by the fact that none of them could hit shots consistently. And that it's frustrating to watch. I thought one thing we're going to need to get used to with Andrew Wiggins as opposed to Jimmy Butler is that you're going to get less free throw attempts from Wiggs. I mean, he got fouled shooting the three at the start of the game and did not shoot another free throw the rest of the night. But I think that they can make that work. I do have to mention that I do not understand what Eric Spoelstra was doing at certain parts of this game. We'll get into it in more depth later. But one of the general things is just at this point, I think that they need to play all of these guys as much as possible. And we'll talk about maybe some of the guys that shouldn't, but Davion Mitchell, to the point tonight, he wasn't efficient, 2 of 8. But you saw that he had some of the defensive stuff going. He's kind of got the energy that they need out there right now. He did have some 4 assists. So, the playmaking was okay. I don't know that he's a starting level point guard in the NBA. So that's a stretch. Not having Tyler out there to help with the offense is difficult for him. Kyle Anderson, it was a nondescript night from him, and he's only going to play when guys are injured. I don't see him having a regular role with the team. And to your point, and we'll go to the player of the game here because I want to talk a little bit more about how they integrated these players and what other guys did or did not do tonight. But we'll do that by transitioning to the Insurance by Lynette player of the game.
And now it's time for the A-Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the Heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebylynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
So, I mean, I wish I could give it to a Heat player, but I can't do that in good conscience. So we're going to talk about Jason Tatum for a moment. Dude came into Miami, did not have a Super Bowl hangover at all. 13 of 26, 33 points, 8 rebounds. Basically had I think it was his highest scoring quarter of the season. A 20-point quarter was mixed in there. I can't remember if it was the second or the third right at this exact moment. But this was a situation where I was baffled by the fact that Bam Adebayo didn't really see a lot of time on Jason Tatum. I thought that there were moments where basically Bam was the last line of defense, and it could have been Kel'el Ware, who tonight only played 26 minutes. I think there's no reason to not play him as much as possible. He only finished with 2 personal fouls. There's no reason to just not see what you have there. So that's going to get us into the Spo topic. But what did you make of not seeing Bam there? Could they done anything differently with Jason Tatum tonight? To me, there were too many times where he was switched off on guys that he just has absolute advantages over, and including guys like Duncan Robinson. What did you think about the way that they defended Tatum? Is there anything to the fact that Bam didn't guard him? Like, what are your thoughts there? And then we're going to get into the Spoelstra topic here, because I think that he's having a challenging season, and I want to address that. But your thoughts on Bam not seeing much time on Tatum?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it would have made that big of a difference, because the Heat, even when they were at their height defensively a couple years ago, they still always have like one liability out there, almost always. And so great players and great teams like the Boston Celtics with Jason Tatum, they're just going to keep putting that person in actions till they get the switch they want. And that's kind of what we saw. And kind of like I mentioned, I thought Wiggins started out pretty good on him. They forced him. I like making Jason Tatum a shooter. He, in my opinion, settles way too many times for threes. He can hit them. He is a good shooter. Don't get me wrong. But he sometimes takes way too difficult of threes, when I feel like he's at his best first attacking, then taking the jump shots that come from him. So making him a shooter, I'm good with. I thought that seemed to be the game plan from Miami. Maybe that's why they had Bam and Kalel more both in the paint, it seemed like to me. But not having Bam on him, I think they could have tried to force it a little bit more, in a sense of have him being, the one guarding him and trying to fight over the screen, or rejecting the switch and all that stuff. But as far as if it really would have made a difference today, I'm not quite sure, because then I think they could also just give it to anyone else. He was on Porzingis, who Kalel, much better than I thought he would be this year. He was awful today. And I get him not playing too much, and especially in a blowout, just throw him out there. It's not going to get any worse, right? We're already down 20. But he was awful in my opinion, but I don't think there was really a solution. I mean, it's the Boston Celtics, and unfortunately we are not the Miami Heat of a couple of years ago, especially now. It's where I don't think we remotely match up with them, even if they are missing two of their starters. I don't think there's an answer we could have thrown out there once Jason Tatum gets going. Porzingis is having a good game. Then also Horford, I mean, he's hitting threes. Derek White,
Derek White three major was such a demoralizing moment right in front of the Heat bench. He just chucks it up. It's difficult. And just to reiterate off the floor, we have Alex and Brady. Ethan is there as well at the game. Some quick stats just to reinforce Major's point about it not really mattering whether Bam ultimately was on Tatum because of how the rest of the game went. The Heat finished with a 93 offensive rating. That's in the 5th percentile. That's not good, if we're just going to cut to the chase. The Celtics with 114. And the other one was they converted only 48% at the rim, 33% in the mid-range, and 24% from three. Just awful shooting all around. The Celtics are in a different class at this point. The Heat are in a transition moment. Usually when you integrate new players into a team, you go through bumpy stretches. The Heat have seen that in the past when they've made trades. You lose games because there's guys that are, just getting acclimated. Tonight, it was compounded by the fact that you have to have Tyler Hero in a game like this, even if they don't have Jaylen Brown. They're just a more connected, deeper team at this point with talent. And then you're going to have guys that go off that you don't expect. I'm quickly scrolling to find Sam Hauser, 15 points, 5 of 8, all from three, by the way, 4 rebounds and 2 assists. It's stuff like that just, it kills you. Let's actually get to the one fun play of the night. If we have to remember one from this game, we'll do that with the mobile seam arm and staffing X-ray play of the game.
And now it's time for the X-Ray of the Play of the Day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the X-ray equipment and the staffing to you. If you work in a hospital or a medical office, get a consultation today at c-armandstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the X-Ray of the Play of the Day.
So the one fun play was Bam throwing one up from really deep at the buzzer. It went in. That was fun. That was about the extent of it. Major, if you have any other ones to add, please do. But this was a game where there was a lot more from guys like Peyton Pritchard. Played 36 minutes, only scored 5 points, but had 10 rebounds and 8 assists and 0 turnovers. That kind of stuff is just insane. They're just such a connected group. I would be surprised if they don't win another championship, to be honest. Can you think of any other fun plays? Because the Bam one, I'm obviously going to call out. And then we're going to talk about Spo's coaching here. And I'm interested in your thoughts there because you are an optimist like I, but even more optimistic at times. Any other plays before we transition here?
Yeah, I mean, not much. I mean, that Bam 3 was literally like the last happy moment of the game. And that was at the end of the first half. Wiggins had a block dunk. That's fun.
Yeah.
It was the first quarter back when they were like actually playing good. Other than that, it was just one of those games where I don't even think it's worth, if you're like Spo, we can transition to Spo after this. I don't even think it's really worth talking about. Like, everyone knows that was a bunch of crap. Like, they're terrible. Throw it away. Move on to the next one.
So let's talk about Erik Spoelstra, because I can sense fans are getting more and more impatient, and they don't have as much compassion for some of the decisions he's making with lineups. Terry Rozier played 25 minutes tonight, which was 3 more minutes than Davion Mitchell, who I know just arrived. I understand that. But at some point here, I just have to start to question how the hell Terry Rozier continues to find minutes on this team. Initially it's about the fact that he's such a large percentage of your cap, your payroll. He's also somebody you invested in when you made a trade with a first round pick. So you want to try to make it work, and you don't want to just say, basically if you were to bench Terry Rozier, Major, you're saying this didn't work ultimately. And I don't think that they wanted to concede that, although I think it's pretty clear. Also, and you mentioned Ware did not have a good game. Overall, I'm with you there, like from a court awareness perspective and defensively, there was a lot that needs to be done. But I just don't see the downside of just playing him if he's not in foul trouble, and let him work through some of this crap that he needs to just let him take his lumps against the Celtics. Like I don't see the downside to it. Maybe there's parts of that I just don't understand. And in a game like tonight, Haywood Highsmith didn't play at all. It seems like this was a conscious decision. Like Spoelstra was going to try to play other guys. Pele Larson got in there. Let's stick to the Rozier topic. I want to see where you are with this, because if he can bench Duncan Robinson, who, if I remember correctly, was making somewhere in the neighborhood of $17 to $18 million, I think he can bench Terry Rozier, even though Terry makes a ton of money. Are you there? Are you at this place where I've arrived, where it's time to bench Terry, like put him on the shelf?
Oh yeah. Like, and to your point, if you can bench Duncan Robinson, who's the best shooter in Miami Heat history, not just bench him, like he was out of the rotation for a while.
Yes.
Why? It is. I don't think Spo's been as bad as most people think, which is not a shock to anyone that knows me. But like, I do not for the life of me understand how Terry Rozier keeps getting into games. Like, not maybe 5 minutes. I'll give him 5 minutes, but like he just destroys offense and defense most of the time. Unless I bet his unders on Prize Picks, then he just dominates. But it is so frustrating every time watching this guy get into the game. And I talked about earlier, there's a difference in missing open shots and taking good shots and just missing them. Terry Rozier is not that. He is killing offense, dribbling the air out of the ball, taking step backs for literally no reason. I don't think it's a secret that some of his best games were when he just stopped dribbling. Like,
Yeah.
Surely the staff knows this too, but I mean, I would literally throw Drew Smith out there before Terry Rozier right now. I never have hated a Heat player while they're actively on the Heat, and I cannot stand when I see that guy stand up and walk to the scorer's table.
There's a lot of people that echo that sentiment. I think, and just to clarify, and I won't put words in your mouth, but when you say hate, you just mean on the basketball court, and it's
for sure. Nothing as a person or anything like that. Yeah. I just can't stand watching him play.
Yes. And other Heat fans, I mean, there's others in our network. Sean is one of them that's been a proponent of why Terry. And it's getting to the point where, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't go up to him and say, do not take another step back three. Like, stop that. Or do not take this over dribbling, off balance, making it a lot harder than it needs to be jump shot, because that's what
the hero and told him.
Like, so that's one gripe that I have. The other one is just with some of these lineups that he's rolling out there with, and tonight, the one that he stuck with late, it just, and I think Pele was out there. It may have been Duncan. There were points where I thought that you should just go with Ware, Wiggins, and Bam up front and give that as much run as possible. Mm-hmm. And so it's just the culmination of all of this is that I'm saying I don't think Spoelstra's had the greatest season. It has not been the best of circumstances. Jimmy has, kind of disrupted a lot. But even independent of that, with some of the timeout stuff, we could catalog all the things. I don't want to necessarily do that with Erik Spoelstra. He's one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the NBA. He will get through this, and it's been a weird season. It's been tumultuous is the word that I'll use. Is there anything I'm missing on Erik Spoelstra? Do you want to defend Erik Spoelstra? And then we're going to get to the defending the house segment, although the Heat did not defend the house at all tonight. But your thoughts on Spo's season overall?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a Spo season, it's not been good. But I still think, like, this team has gone up. They're still fighting for a playoff spot. So I don't think it's as bad. To your point, I think Jimmy Butler has ruined a lot of what they're planning on doing. For like their game plan, you're supposed to have a star player, and he was, for more times than not there. Now you're trying to integrate new players, so I'm interested to see how that'll change. To your point on Ware, I've been one of the most critical of Ware in our network for sure. And even though I said I thought he was just terrible tonight, to your point, at this point just play him. Like, let him work through his up and downs. But there could also be something behind the scenes we don't know about that's like they're almost protecting him from something, because we see it all the time, and like players get their confidence ruined in bad games and everything. Spo could be protecting something there.
I'm glad you're saying this.
Yeah, I'm not saying that is what happened, but I think sometimes we lose track of that. He's a young player.
They did it with Nico a lot. I don't mean to interrupt you. I'll pass the mic back, but I feel like they really protected Nico, and it's helped him in his progression now. But yeah, you're right. You're spot on with that.
Yeah. So and then like the roster construction, as everyone knows, is not ideal. So I do think sometimes when we're like, Spo, these lineups are terrible. Like when you really start like looking at it, you're like, what else am I supposed to do? Like, no one's making a shot. It doesn't matter who I put out there. I'm going to put out there another guy that can't shoot to help them make threes. Not really. Like, you can't do that. Maybe Highsmith, like in a game like this. I mean, he's been a decent shooter, but I just think there's a lot of duplication on the roster, not a lot of answers for the problems they have. So I think like they're very matchup dependent as a team. So they get into a bad matchup. Like we saw Davion getting switched onto Porzingis, and I just laughed. I was like, it looked like me out there guarding him. Like there's literally nothing he could do. And people are like, oh, Spo needs to switch the lineup. Porzingis going out. Like, what do you want him to do? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, there weren't many answers, frankly. And as I said earlier, I think the Celtics are on a path to being back-to-back champions. I don't love to say that out loud. I don't think that Cleveland is going to ultimately get there. I could be wrong, but this just looks like a team that their depth just fits. Everybody has their roles clearly defined. I hate to say this. I know a championship team when I see one, and I think that Boston is one of those teams. But that's about the end of the Boston praise on this episode. Let's get to the defending the house segment, although the Heat didn't defend any house.
And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at The Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The Real Estate Shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house?
Absolutely nobody. Yeah, we're not going to spend a segment going over any more of the defensive stuff. Rebounds were about even. Turnovers were about even. The Heat took care of the ball tonight, and they could not shoot, and the Celtics were just more connected, moving right along. When we talk about defending the house, the Heat are not going to be at their house for an extended stretch now, Major. We're talking about they just were on a road trip. They came back for one game against Boston. They got to pick up their new additions. Now they go on the road. I'm going to quickly rattle off the schedule, and then we're going to talk about how the hell they get through this month. They go at Oklahoma City, Dallas, Toronto, Milwaukee, Atlanta. Then they're back home against Atlanta and Indiana to close out the month. But it's essentially, what are we looking at here? 5-game road trip starting in Oklahoma City, which is just brutal. They're on a 2-game losing streak now. This could get weird if they don't figure things out. Obviously, I think Tyler will be back. Hopefully, Jaime will as well. It looks like they're both suffering from some of the same sort of stomach illness. So hopefully that passes quickly. Boy, do they need Tyler for this road trip. But can the Heat survive the month of February? Like, this is going to be when we figure out if they can get into that 6th seed and vie for a playoff spot, or if this is play-in fodder that we're going to deal with. It's a transition year at this point. So, I think we should adjust expectations. But what are your thoughts as they head out on the road? Do they have a chance to make this interesting? What would a 5-game trip, what would be a successful trip to you?
That's a hard question to answer. I'll just take Alex's thing. That's a tough question. OKC, we stand no chance. Like, that team is so good. They are incredible. Then I think you said Dallas. We have a chance in that game, in my opinion. They traded for Anthony Davis, and he's out.
That's true.
So that is something. Then was it the Bucks, Milwaukee?
Sorry, I did rattle that off really quickly. So yeah, at Oklahoma City and Dallas, that's Wednesday and Thursday of this week. Then All-Star break, and then they pick back up, and it's Toronto, Milwaukee, Atlanta.
Those 3 games are winnable if you have Hero back. So I think this is going to be like, it needs to be at minimum 2 and 3, right? Like, which it's not good.
3 and 2 would be nice though.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Like minimum 2 and 3 to be like, just get through it type thing. But 3 and 2 is ideal. You're playing Toronto. You're playing Atlanta. They should win both of those. I don't care who they have on the team. They should be better than both of those. Then you have 2 winnable games in there that I say could be 50-50 depending on who's out and who's not. And then you have OKC. So like 3 and 2 is very doable. Then they just have to beat the teams that they're better than, and that's sometimes been a problem.
Yeah, and so this is where we'll close tonight. And again, the Miami Heat lose to Boston 103-85 on their home floor. Jason Tatum had one of the best quarters he's had all season. And I'll close the episode by saying once again, I'm betting Boston to get through this thing and close the deal, as much as I hate saying that. The only part of this, because you're right, the 3 games after the break, Dallas, Toronto, Milwaukee, for different reasons, they are they can get those games. This is what worries me. You lose to Oklahoma City and Dallas. You've lost 4 in a row and 5 out of 6, if I'm looking at this correctly. If that is how you enter the All-Star break, it's going to be a mental game to get back and figure out a way to dig yourself out of that kind of stretch of bad basketball with a lot of losing, especially with the trade of Jimmy being sandwiched in the middle of all that. So hopefully the break will be good to this Miami Heat team. They can integrate the guys, have maybe an extra practice or 2 in there to really figure out some stuff, because these next 2, to your point, Oklahoma City and Dallas, they're going to be the tougher of the games to get. Oklahoma City, let's just scratch that one off. Dallas, to your point, without Anthony Davis, it's possible, but on the road in Dallas, you never know. There could be other things, and Kyrie is there still. So we'll see how that goes. But this is going to be an interesting stretch. I just wonder if the losses continue to pile up, how the team mentally works through that. We will see. That's a conversation for another day. The Boston Celtics outplay the Miami Heat 103-85. They we all thought maybe the Super Bowl would cause the South Beach flu to come over the Boston Celtics, and they said none of that. And I guess that's what champions do. As much as it pains me to say. Thank you to Major for joining me tonight. Thank you to our sponsors. We'll have you covered for the Miami Heat games on this road trip. Thank you. And don't forget about Off the Floor, $2.99 a month. Subscribe. The link is in the description of this episode. Peace.